Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar today on keyword research. I'm Chad Hill and I'm joined by Adam Stetzer.
Good afternoon, everybody. Up here in the Rochester office, this is Adam Stetzer. I'm joined with the account management team. Say hello, everybody. Hello.
And we also have our team leader of our SEO analysis team, Eric Rohrbach, is going to be helping me present today. So Eric, welcome to the call today.
Thanks for having me.
Let's jump right in. So keyword research is what really it's all about, and it's so important to an SEO campaign because obviously, as we all know, if you start off in the wrong direction, then you don't end up where you want to be. And that all starts with the keyword research and understanding and setting expectations with your client. So we've made some tweaks to our process over the last couple months, and a lot of you have seen this in our recent SOW kickoff calls as well as our monthly review meetings. So we thought that it would be good to bring this all back and do a webinar on it and allow all of us to let this soak in a little bit and have an opportunity to answer any questions that you might have. Today on our agenda, we're going to walk through keyword discovery, talk a bit about keyword competition, and then how we map the keywords and competition to HubShout plans and finding keywords that are appropriate for a client's given budget. Then we're going to talk a bit more about mapping the keywords that you want to target to content on your website. And this graphic over here on the right is sort of the theme of today, and it's repeated again in a minute. But I really like this. Eric found it, and it basically is act like an owner, think like a customer. And I'm not sure exactly what the intent of it was supposed to be, but we're going to use that to mean that we need to basically learn how to sort of flip around and think like the customer and the person searching in the search engine, and then think about who our client is so that we can actually try to match the keywords that are the right fit for that client. And a lot of times I think that's really the trick in keyword research is getting good at sort of role-playing what a customer might be thinking and then taking what your customer is talking about and sort of figuring out the Rubik's Cube in a way of what the right keywords for that business might be. So Eric, take it away.
Yeah, so I've gone over this numerous times with both my team and the account management team to really get a sense of how you start keyword research is you have to understand the actual end client. You have to talk with your client. You have to figure out who are they trying to target. You have to really talk with your clients to figure out their customers to see what's the value proposition that they're trying to sell. If you're picking keywords on a product or a service that doesn't actually relate to what they're promoting, you're eventually going to draw in the wrong kind of traffic, and you're not going to get the conversions you want. So to really start to get some ideas, a few things that I do, you talk with a client, you review the website, see what kind of products or services that they're promoting. Review their competitors. A lot of times if you have competition that's closely related, you can get a lot of ideas on what kind of customers they're trying to attract, and then find keywords based on their web copy or their calls to actions on the website. Google AdWords campaigns, if you have an active paid search account running, that is one of the best ways to see what are people actually clicking on and searching on today. And then, of course, Google Keyword Planner, running the landing pages through Keyword Planner, starting out with a general search and then refining it down. All good ways to figure out how does your client's target customer search. Go on to the next slide.
Yeah, and before we do that, Eric, let me just jump in and say one thing. And again, one of the key things I've seen and the skill set that I think goes into being a good keyword researcher or not actually fits very well with all of us on the phone who are in sales and account management, because really a lot of what you need is you need common sense. What really the problems I see with keyword research are often when someone is sort of trying to force a keyword to be what they think their client wants it to be, but that's really the wrong approach. You need to sort of, again, flip it around and think about who's on the other end of that search. And again, in many cases, you can use your personal experience to get it to set up a role play for yourself. So in the case of maybe a client who sells replacement windows, even if you've never bought windows in your life, you can probably get a sense for why someone might be looking at replacement windows. We've all slept next to a window that might be drafty, or there might be a window that's maybe not as energy efficient as you'd like. And so those kinds of things, like just getting in the head of someone who might be thinking about windows, will allow you to be better at keyword research. So I'm going to advance now here, Eric, and turn it back over to you.
Cool. Well, there's 3 different types of keywords that you have to be really knowledgeable about: informational, navigational, and transactional. Now, about 5 minutes before this webinar, I thought of probably the best way I could really describe this. Informational, like how to build a garage. Someone's typing that in and thinking, how hard is it to build this? Then they move on to the navigational search. Once they've started to Google, how hard is it to build, they found a few brands. So navigational is your branded search. They found safe steel buildings. Okay, I found this company. I wonder what they do. So they're going to look into it a little bit further. Then transactional, they're going to go steel garage kits for sale. Now they're thinking, who else is selling these? Where can I buy it? If you're thinking, if you're selling a product or a service and you want people to actually buy, you want to be in that transactional space and really refine your keywords down. If you are still going after keywords that are informational or navigational, then you're getting clicks, you're getting traffic, but that traffic might not be converting. Those are the 3 different types of keywords that you're going to be exposed to and they have to be aware of when you're doing keyword research. A couple more just constraints to finding good keywords. Geographical constraints. Is your client a local business that you could walk down the street to talk to, or are they a national company? Depending on those 2 things, the keywords will be vastly different. It's the search volume that you're going for specifically in your client city, or are they going after something that's a little far off? If you're in Kissimmee, are you going for that Orlando search traffic? And do you have a service area or brick and mortar business? If you service a specific area, like the map to the right, you can potentially go after keywords that, through bunch of different cities and still have it applicable for your client. If it's a brick and mortar business and there's only one location, then you might be confined a little bit to that location. Then the last thing that you want to check on to refine keywords, what's your client currently ranking on for those keywords? Are they in a good position? Are they on page 1? Or are they on page oblivion where we're starting from scratch?
So I want to jump back in and talk a little bit about competition, because as Eric has given us some ideas on how to create a bucket or a list of keywords that might be relevant, the next thing you need to do is you have to start thinking about whether or not your client can rank on that. And this is a very important, especially as it relates to things like geographic keywords. So if someone were trying to rank on the keyword, plumber as an example, and that national phrase, that may be very, very competitive, whereas plumber in their local market may not be quite as competitive. So what we typically do is there really are 2 factors that drive competition for a keyword. One is the commercial intent of a keyword, and I think Eric used the term the transactional keyword. So AdWords is a great proxy for commercial intent, because people, as Eric said, have this perfect information about what people are searching for and clicking and converting. And so in AdWords, people set their bids associated with that money. So that's why, for example, we were just talking about this earlier today. For example, mesothelioma is the most expensive keyword in AdWords. Well, it's because those cases for lawyers are worth a lot of money. And so they're willing to bid a lot of money to get those clicks into their website. The other side of it is demand. So clearly the monthly search volume on a keyword also drives how much competition. Because you could have a very high commercial intent keyword, but maybe only a couple people make that product in the whole country because there's very little demand. So we have some clients who come in and have these very specific industrial parts. There may only be 2 or 3 people in the industry. The commercial intent of the person searching could be very big, but because there's not a lot of demand, there aren't that many people searching for super industrial bolts or whatever it might be, the demand is lower there. So when we start to think about how we can take a keyword and figure out whether or not it's appropriate for an SEO budget, with organic traffic, most people kind of consider it free. But the best proxy to determine the value of organic traffic is to actually use these factors we have, these proxies of monthly searches and the average cost per click, and try to come up with a value of a ranking. And so our web grader does that. And what we're going to be talking about today and showing you some of our keyword research planning, we're also applying a very similar methodology. So what we do, again, to determine the value of a keyword is we take a monthly search, which is, again, reported through Google and other third-party data sources, times an average cost per click, which, again, mostly comes from Google data, times a click-through rate, and which is based on your current position on the page. So and we assume, I think, 0.41 or something of 40% click-through rate is the value of a top position. So we take those values and we can say that this keyword is a ranking on page 1 for this keyword is worth this much in monthly traffic. And obviously, as you can probably imagine, the higher that value, the more competitive that keyword is. So some of the ways that we have looked at competition in the past, and some people may use still, I want to make sure we talk about these, are things like putting, as we've got here, putting in quotes the keyword you're searching for, which that's telling Google how many pages in your index have this keyword on a page. Some people say, well, that's maybe that's okay, but maybe it's a little better to use this other search parameter, which is in title with the phrase in quotes, which means that how many pages in the Google index have this exact phrase in the title tag or in the title of a search result, which maybe is a little bit better proxy for how many people are actively trying to rank on that as the title of their page, not just it happens to occur on a page somewhere on the web. Now, we've used this data for a long time to help understand and fit keywords and map them to budgets. But as we've evolved our process, we really think that the keyword value that I just mentioned on the previous page is a better approach for 2 reasons. One, or the main reason, is because it's a lot easier for us to pull that data out in a very quick way. So when we're trying to sort and sift through lots and lots of keywords, it's much easier to use this average cost per click and to use the monthly search volume information than it is to go into Google and start putting things in quotes and manually cutting and pasting stuff into a spreadsheet. So when we're trying to do a quick analysis and understand it, that's what we tend to refer over to. So now, as we step through this process and we get to the next step, which is an example, before we get there, we now need to we talked about identifying a group of keywords. We've then talked about how you might assign or associate a value with a ranking on that keyword. Now what we need to do is map through that value to a HubShout SEO plan. And so we've got a little chart here on the right, and this number shouldn't be too, you might recognize these numbers because this in many cases is the recommended retail value or price of our SEO programs. So what we're basically saying is that when you look at something like a basic plan where we're saying it has a $800 keyword value budget, what we can do is we can go find keywords when we use our methodology of volume times average cost per click times an assumed click-through rate of a page 1 ranking. We can add those up and say that plan supports about this amount of keywords. So really, when we get to the next step, what you're going to see is that means a couple different things. That means, well, if you're coming to a program and you have a definitive set of keywords that you know this client wants to rank on, and you're trying to figure out what budget or what plan should put them in, you can kind of assign a value of all those keywords and then go map it to the right and say, well, they probably need to be on this plan in order to support those keywords. Or conversely, if they come to you and you're like, I want to sell the basic plan, I know that's the client's budget, now I need to find keywords that fit into that plan, you'll be able to do that. And even on a more granular level, when you start to look at, well, I've got this $800 budget and I kind of have a couple different directions I can go in. I can pick, 5 or 6 or 7, maybe, or maybe even in this, maybe you pick 10 smaller, less competitive phrases with less search volume, or I go after a little bit more competitive, but maybe I don't have quite as many keywords. So it's probably a lot to sort of take in, but the idea again is you're mapping keywords, trying to understand the value of that keyword of a page 1 ranking, and then you're fitting it to the appropriate plan. So I'm going to pull up a document here, and Eric's going to walk us through how this looks in action. And so Eric, take it away. Let me know if you need to scroll down. I will do that.
All right. So what I did this afternoon was put together a little demo spreadsheet for our VetHubs account. What this spreadsheet is actually doing is taking the keyword, the monthly searches, and suggested bid. All that's coming from Google AdWords. Then, like Chad said before, it's using that same formula to calculate in the searches, suggested bid, and the click rate. That gives you your SEO budget share for first position. Now, the next step that we took in, like I mentioned in an earlier slide, you also want to be very aware of the current rank for that position or for that keyword. So if I go up to veterinary websites, and right now I have it listed as 535. If I change that to 1 for veterinarian websites, the actual estimated current click-through rate will change to what the first position click-through rate is. And that'll give you the current SEO ranking traffic value that your client has for that keyword. Now, I think we're all on screen. So when you do that, the budget stays the same because it's a standard plan, but the total traffic cost will adjust based on what your client's currently ranking in. So that methodology being, if you're ranking in a higher position, you've already secured that top spot for a very competitive keyword. Now you can actually go after a little less competitive or other competitive keywords that'll fit within the budget. Right now, the current campaign, that's a little over budget. If you scroll out a little bit, Chad, you can see the...
there you go.
There you go. Now, below the current campaign keywords, I found a few suggested target keywords that fit a little bit better with this budget. So,
and Eric, before you could do that, could you walk people through what's in each of these squares? Chad, if you scroll back up, so and give a full explanation for that 2,000 at the top, the 2,820 on the right, and the 680. What do those 3 boxes represent? Because people are seeing this spreadsheet for the first time, and I know it can be confusing.
All right. I think, Chad, you're going to have to click on each of the boxes to actually show the values and show the formulas. But the top box is just a validation for the plan levels. So if you click the little arrow next to standard, you'll see a drop-down, and you can actually change the plan level. So let's say we are on a basic. Now the budget changes. Now you can see exactly what plan or exactly what budget fits with what plan level.
So that's the recommended retail price of that? Is that what you're showing here?
Correct.
Okay, great. And what about the 2,820 and the 680 over on the right, and how do those relate?
So the total traffic cost for the keywords in the campaign, that's the sum of all the keywords that you have for the SEO budget share for the first position. That's the sum of column E. Now the current ranking traffic, the box right below that, that's the sum of column I, which is your client's current SEO ranking traffic.
And then the 2820 is
that is the SEO budget share, and it's subtracting out what your client currently is at, and then it'll give you an actual value of what you can do with the budget. So if the keywords are ranking high, if I change this to 1, change this to 3. Depending on where you're ranking, the values will change and give you a more realistic view of how much you can add, or what type of keywords you can go after, how much cap room or budget room you have to go after more difficult competitive keywords. And
all right, so a couple questions coming in here for you, Eric. So one person wrote in from the chat window, I'm a little confused, got here a little late, and I'm not great with spreadsheets anyway. You're going to have to say that again and slower. What are these boxes, and what am I doing with this? Pretty good?
Yeah.
So let's go over the top. So you had that top number is $2,000, which Chad has on the standard. That recommended retail rate, thereabouts that you're charging your client. So what are they trying to achieve with that $1,749 over in column K? Trying to go higher or lower than that number, and why?
Go lower or equal to that number.
2,000.
2,000, because that will tell you. Your client's spending $2,000 for SEO. That should be the value of the keywords that they're trying to target. I guess to put it in perspective, your client's spending $2,000. Competitor could be going after the same keywords, but they're spending $10,000. If you're going after the same keywords, you need to make sure that you are within budget, that you're within the same scope of the plan that your client's buying into.
So someone else wrote in, Eric, I'm loving the sheet. Are you going to email it to me? And I think someone else here, Chad, asked, is this something that's going to be made available to us?
yes, absolutely. This is something that will definitely be. I think what our plan would be to make a Excel version of it. It's a Google Doc now, and put it on the support page.
Yeah, I think this is probably the third or fourth revision that we've made to this, and every time it changes, it's based on the feedback that we've gotten from the account managers and everyone else on the team. So as we're hearing more feedback, more things are getting adjusted, layouts changing. So the more input that we have for something like this, the better it's going to.
And I got a bunch of comments coming in, Eric, saying, okay, I'm starting to understand this. They're starting to get it, that the box at the top is how much I'm paying, and the other box on the far right is the value of what we're trying to do with this project to justify how much we're paying. So it sounds like you're getting them oriented. So the next comment that came in here was, this is fairly advanced for a keyword research tool. I'm understanding the value proposition, but how do I go about finding the keywords to populate this?
Yeah. I found all this data through AdWords. Basically, the formulas are set up already, so the only things that you would really need to input, keywords, monthly searches, suggested bid, which is all that data is coming from AdWords, and then checking their current ranking. Then the rest basically just populates from there. Those are the
So Eric, let's run through that. It's a great question on keyword discovery. So coming from AdWords, we talked about there being a couple different ways, and we talked about first you just need to role play and start to jot ideas down. But if you're just not creative at all and you cannot understand what in the world, how to come up with a list of keywords, we have a couple tools for you. So Eric mentioned AdWords Keyword Planner. I'm going to tout one of our own tools real quick. So for example, take veterinary or veterinarian vet. veterinarian website. Okay. And what I might do is, if I should do that on Google, I'm still doing the Bing challenge here, so guys. Okay, so there's a couple that pop up. So what I might want to do is, let's just take Vet Network as one example. So I'm going to go into our research tab here, and I'm going to plug in Vet Network. I'm just looking at some other keywords that these guys might rank on. PetMD looks a little, trying to find ones that are sort of more related just to veterinary websites, not super broad sites. Plug in these two guys. So if you go to our research tool in the research tab in your dashboard or through the web grader at HubShout.com, you can plug in information. And what we're doing is we're going and we're pulling out from a third-party data source what rankings these websites appear to have. So if I click See Full Keyword Analysis, it'll kind of give you some of the rough numbers that we're already talking about here. So this is going to give you off the bat keywords that have a lot of volume. So I'm grouping by search. So right here I can start scanning down this list and get a sense of veterinary marketing, vet info network, or that's probably not a good one, vet websites, veterinarian logo. So I can grab these keywords. I have the CPC already here, and I can go plug it into Eric's spreadsheet and start to understand the value of these keywords. I mean, I can just tell you the value is roughly the search times the cost per click times 0.42, which is actually the sort of agreed upon value of, several data sources use that as like the assumed click-through rate of a page one position, kind of a position one ranking, a max click-through rate of a top ranking. So you use that to come up with the value. And then Eric's plugging that data in here, and then really the next step once you have that list of keywords is to try to figure out, well, if my client only has a budget for a standard plan, which of these keywords can I recommend to them without it sort of getting to the point where I'm spreading myself too thin? And that's really what it's all about, right? I mean, in theory, you could plug 100 keywords into any one of our campaigns. The reality of it is, though, there's only so much work being done on a given budget. So if you spread yourself too thin, you're really not getting any repeat effort on any given keyword. So that's why we require that you limit yourself down, because we all want there to be success in these campaigns. And we know that if you only have 20 items of work and you have 50 keywords, then there's going to be 30 keywords that month that may not really be getting any benefit of work being done. So that's why we try to limit you down to picking fewer, but fewer more important keywords that you'll be able to accomplish rankings on.
All right, Chad, question for you and Eric. Someone wrote in, so they're a little confused about the 0.42 click-through rate. Most of my clients are at 1.2 click-through rate. So I think they're getting a little confused about the click-through rate on Google versus on the client site. Can you cover that again?
Yeah, this isn't a client site click-through rate. These are, we researched a few different studies that looked at the organic click-through rates for Google, and that's what we're basing these off of. So if you're on page 1, in positions 1 through 10, each of those get a certain traffic share or a certain click-through rate, and that's what we're basing these off of. It's not specific to a client site. It's more general click-through rates based on studies that we found.
Right, so we're upstream from that by one step. We're talking about bringing the traffic to the site. Then that issue of click-through rate and conversion on the site is a whole different discussion.
Yes.
Another question that came in for you guys here is, are you guys doing this for us? Isn't HubShout completing this for us?
Yes, we are doing this for you. It's something the account managers and our SEO analyst team are looking at, and we've also been reviewing this in our SOW kickoff calls. But our general belief is that the more you understand and the better you are as a consultant with your clients, the better you will be at selling and then also maintaining that relationship. So we want to explain this process. So I think, as I said, kicking off the call, this is something we've been rolling out, but felt that, hey, we should sort of step back and discuss this with a larger group in a webinar setting, and that's why we're here today, to explain the methodology behind it in a place where we can get the kind of questions we're getting today. So I think this is right on target. Okay, great. So we know this is fairly complicated, so we're not expecting that everyone has absorbed all of this. It will be on our support page. We'll put a link up to it. I do think that this is something you can lean on us to help you with, but the more that we all can kind of buy into this, the better, because this ties in with the SEO goals that I've been talking to many of you about in our kickoff calls and our monthly review meetings. And that's on our development plate right now. We're taking the inputs that we've been gathering about the SEO goals, and what we're trying to do is tie this all together so that there are the right keywords that are selected up front. This stuff is also critically important for the on-site implementation, which we're going to talk about in a minute on keyword mapping, but that those get set correctly up front with goals, and then as the campaign progresses, we want to be able to have benchmarks and look back and say, how are we doing against our goals for this SEO campaign? And again, we know from as I said, the first thing we started with today, that far too often when we look at accounts that are churning out and we look at reasons that someone might be leaving, we see keywords and we say, gosh, like those were just the wrong keywords. So we're saying we need to all dig into this and own this all together to make sure that we get the right keywords up front, and that even if a client is insistent that they want something that we know is unattainable, we want to take a more proactive stance to say, look, here's our methodology and here's why we think that's the wrong way to go. So we want to educate everybody on this process and how we're applying it. We'll flip back to the deck now, and let me just pull up my screen. Eric, why don't you talk about keyword mapping?
Sure. So with every keyword that you bring into a campaign, ideally you want it mapped to the most relevant page. Good rule to kind of work by is for every unique deep link you have, you need a related keyword for that deep link. A big part of this is going to be the on-site report that the analysts will work on. If the keywords and the deep links aren't set up correctly in the campaign, then the analysts won't know where to go. You're basically setting up the roadmap to tell the analyst, hey, I want this keyword or this page optimized for this keyword. If a page doesn't exist for a just awesome keyword that you found, then at that point you really need to create one and make sure that you have the right page set up to make that keyword work for your campaign. To do this, it's in the Advanced tab of each campaign. There's the deep link section where you can add in each page that you want the keyword to go to and each page that you want optimized. And then that'll show in the drop-down when you're adding keywords.
Great, and I want to add something here again, and just to emphasize that there are many cases where we'll see a website that'll come through and someone will say, well, let's make the About Us or Contact Us page try to rank for a keyword. And that may have been something that worked a year ago, but today you really need to make sure, I think all of us would say, if, again, switching this around and thinking like a customer for a minute, that if I search for a product or a service that in my market and all things worked with SEO, and when I searched through for on-demand hot water heater, I'm a plumber, right? On-demand hot water heater, and that our SEO worked flawlessly, and that target URL and the page that we tried to make rank on that was the About Us page or the Contact Us page. That's not a good search experience for the person searching. In reality, what that client, what the customer, what Google, what we all want is we want when someone searches for tankless or on-demand hot water heater that you would land on a page, a service page, that talked about how this plumber had a tankless water heater service that they could come in and put one of these things into your house. And then from there was a link to contact us or call us. So what we're saying is that sometimes that means a little more work up front. We can help you do it if you want. You do have to, we don't, as part of our programs, write brand new content. We'll edit content for you. But you can easily have us, you can engage with us to write a marketing copy page for you, or it's something you can do or your client can do. But we're going to be making those recommendations in those kickoff calls, and we've had several come through where we've said, look, you need to go right, you need to get the client or you or somebody needs to get these 5 pages of content on the website, because the reality is probably adding those 5 pages of content is going to have a more immediate impact than anything else we could possibly do in the next 30 days. If you sell tankless water heaters and install them, and there's nothing on your website about that, the most immediate result you're going to get is by writing a page of content about that service and getting it up on your website. So when we push back a little bit, it's not because we're trying to make work for anybody. It's that we're really trying to get the best results for you and for your client, and that's why we're saying, look, we need this content there. Okay, well, this was short and sweet. So like we said earlier, we wanted to roll this out, talk to you about our process, be here to answer some of the questions that already came in. That's great. Adam, do we have any other questions that appeared in the last couple of slides?
Yeah, one more here that said it would be nice to have some sort of tally of the number of leads created as a column in this worksheet. Yeah.
Okay.
Chad, I don't know if you want to talk about our reactions to that. I think we're using this as an expectation setting tool and pricing setting tool, but I think we envision that being more in the dashboard later. I don't know if you want to talk about the goal setting process, Chad, briefly, that you've been doing.
Yeah, and I think a couple things. So I'm not sure when you're talking about capturing leads at a keyword level, just so everyone kind of remembers that those days are unfortunately over. We used to know that when Google referred keyword data and search queries, and we could actually capture that information and stick it in a lead form. That's unfortunately not around anymore. So what we have left is we do know, though, that when we have a lead from an organic source. So that gets into the discussion we were talking about a minute ago with goal setting. And so with goal setting, what we're doing is we are capturing 2 things about the client's business and then some stuff about their website. So what we've been asking people is what the average value of a customer is and how many leads it takes for them to get a customer. And what that allows us to do, and let me just quickly here see if I can pull up an example so we have something good to look at. Okay, so I've got the VetHubs example here. And on our Advanced tab in Campaign Details, we have this new Performance and Goals section that we've added in. And as I mentioned, there's 2 upfront pieces of data that really apply universally to any type of marketing you might be doing with the client, which is what's the value of a customer, and then what's the conversion rate for the customer. So what we're doing here is, again, it's just a test account, but let's say that a vet practice, actually it's probably lower than that, it's called $2,500. Vets don't have a lot of money, but the lifetime value of a vet client might be $2,500. So that means I sell them a website and I do a little SEO for them, and that's about what I make in a lifetime value is $2,500. So Then the other part is to ask them, though, how many leads does it take to sell a vet a website and some marketing services? And it might be 1 in 10 because vets do a lot of shopping. They talk to 5, 6 agencies. Sometimes they just build it themselves. And our historical data tells us that we only sell 1 in 10. So what that does is that tells us a couple things. It means that if it takes me 10 leads to get a customer worth $2,500, that means the revenue per lead or the lead value is $250. And then what we're doing here is in this calculator, we're saying no business person would spend $250 to make $250. They need to pay people, profits, etc. But a 30% marketing cost makes sense. So what I'm saying here is that to make $250, I need to pay $75 in marketing costs. So my target cost per lead is $75 to get a lead worth $250. And the reason it's worth $250 is because for every 10 that I get, I sell $2,500 in services. So that's the first part of just getting sort of a number to work with. But what's really important is this number here, 75. Because now what we can do is go look at the value. If the client agrees that yes, a lead is worth $75, then you can go look at what they're paying for SEO. Now this isn't in month 1, but what they're paying in SEO and say, well, if you're spending $750 for SEO every month and you want your target cost per lead to be $75, then that SEO needs to be creating 10 leads a month in order to get you to a target cost of $75 per lead. Does everyone follow the math on that? So I'm going to plug that in as a lead. So now what we're working through is we're starting to get to the question that was asked, which is, okay, I need to justify the value of this program to my client. Now, please don't go tell your client in month 2, if they have 0 leads coming in from SEO, that they'll get 10 in month 2 or even month 1 or month 3. This is where they are when they get to the rankings that we want to accomplish. So there's definitely some investment to get to this point. So if you have 10 leads, then what we need to say is, well, how much organic traffic do we need to generate to get 10 leads? And what we've been plugging in is we've been plugging in that a decent website converts at roughly 8%. So some people might say, well, mine only converts at 1.2. If that's what it converts at, that's going to be very hard for you to generate enough traffic to get those 10 leads to get the $75 cost per lead. So does that mean you should just quit and go home? No, actually what that means is now you've got a nice piece of data to potentially position to sell a website. And now obviously we're talking about a company who has websites, so that would be slightly weird, but in most cases if you're talking to an end client, that's when you're like, if your website is only converting at 1.2%, you probably need a couple things. One, you probably need a new website. The second thing you need is you definitely need a better call to action on your website. So do you prominently place your phone number and track your phone calls? Do you have a very obvious web to lead form? Maybe you need to be thinking about some nurture marketing, and so you need to have an ebook or some other piece of content that you ask them to download, and then you capture an email address and you nurture them through. And then finally, you might want to also be thinking about retargeting, which, as many of you know, we include in all of our programs. We'll run a retargeting campaign for you. The reason we do that is because we want you to get that conversion rate up to as close to 8% or higher as possible, because we know that's when, and there's no magic about 8, but really the thing is it needs to be higher than 4 and 5. It needs to be as close, up towards 10. So we picked 8. So what we need to do is you need to be working on other programs to get your conversion rate up. So let's take that number. We have 10, and we want to convert at 8%. So that means we need 125 organic visits a month. And for this program, let's just say we need 10 rankings and 10 entrances. So Adam had asked me to explain the goals, and so what I've done here is I've shown you how we started a conversation with the customer about the value of one of their customers, talked about their internal sales process, and now we've converted that into expectations for the SEO program. But the real key thing here, and so now we're going to be working on building some tools to check the progress against these goals so that we can all collectively be talking about the same thing. So when we hear client's not happy or client is happy, our hope is that we can then go look at these goals and say, good. Yes, of course the client's happy because they're hitting all the objectives that are stated here. Or, of course the client's unhappy. They're not hitting these goals, and what can we do to get them there? So that's really where we want to take the discussion with SEO and make it much more like pay-per-click, where there's a goal that you're targeting, and there are levers you have to make progress towards that goal. We want to do that same thing with SEO. So Adam, that's a very not a very quick answer, but a long answer to what are we doing with goals.
Yes, and very thorough. Thank you. And I got a couple comments while you were talking, saying, this is great stuff, guys. It will help me show the ROI. This is great. I'm going to need to practice with it. A couple people I've been chatting with in the window saying, where can I get another run-through on this? And I steered them to our 4 p.m. training, which is each and every day. We'll make sure Adam M. is fully versed, has access to this, so he can walk you through in a lot of detail and do some test cases with you. As Chad said, this is an excellent way to start handling expectation management up front, to make sure what you're going to sell them is going to work for them, and they're going to be a 2-year customer, not a 90-day customer, as well as an excellent way to upsell them. If they have bigger ambitions on more traffic, more keywords, more customers, you've got a very scientific way to show them what that budget should be, and then transition them very quickly into a goal-setting mentality, as Chad just outlined, so we continue that thinking around the metrics and how we're going to maintain this customer so they've got the lead flow that justifies their continued investment. It's all excellent. Fits together nicely. It looks good, guys.
Yeah, and Adam, one other thing I was going to mention is that it's been great because a lot of people are already doing this. So when we have this discussion, I ask them the question and they just start rattling off the answers. So it's great that there are a number of you who already have built this into your business, and then there's other people who haven't. So we want to. That's obviously the objective, is to have this discussion. But the really cool thing is that when you start to get this number, what you're going to find, this number being the target cost per lead, $75 in this case, I believe there are, and I know there are a lot of end clients out there that in their minds still think the lead is $25. Anything more than $25 or $20, whatever the number is, but they just have something planted in their head that they would never pay a penny more than $25 for a lead or something, right? Well, what you've just done by running through this very simple exercise, all with information they gave you, right? You now can reposition them to say, all of a sudden for the first time, they may look at this and say, you know what, you're right. Gosh, I thought those $40 leads I was getting from paid search or whatever other programs I was running, I always thought those were too expensive. But now that you pointed out here, you're right. I could probably afford more than $40. So it's a very powerful discussion. And, yeah, we'll help you, again, in our SOW kickoff calls, our monthly review meetings. If you ever have a question, and I'm there, either come to our training at 4 p.m. and Adam Marlowe can help you, or in any of our monthly review calls, feel free to have us role play and talk about this, because I think it really is, as Adam said, it's how you take a customer from being a 90-day customer to being a multi-year customer. And as always, this will be posted on our website tomorrow, and we will also open up a forum discussion. So if there are any follow-up questions, feel free to ask us in the forum, and thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.